Hey everyone, I was thinking about the COVID pandemic and how it may have changed commercial real estate forever. When the COVID pandemic hit the US in 2020, it had immediate dramatic effects. There was the health impact and the loss of life, but I want to focus on how the crisis affected the economy and commercial real estate over the short term and, more importantly today, the long term. The immediate effects of the pandemic included massive job losses, totaling nearly 22 million positions in just 2 months. But at this point, those jobs have been fully recovered, and the US now employs 3.3 million more people than it ever has in its history. The pandemic also spawned waves of stimulus. That money has pretty much been spent, but it still lives on in our economy in the form of inflation. And during the health crisis, many households consolidated, with about 1.5 million young adults moving in with family members. Most of those consolidated COVID households have debundled, but there are still about 3 million more young adults living with family than the historical norm. While many of the effects of the pandemic have been resolved, others like inflation, Federal Reserve policy, and interest rates are still working through the system. Many of these will play out over the next year or two, but some residual effects could take years or even decades to play out. The labor shortage is one such issue. There are about 9.6 million unfilled jobs today, about 5 million more than normal. The shortage of workers partially reflects the decision by many baby boomers to retire at the outset of the pandemic, but it's also tied to the sharp reduction of immigration to the United States during the health crisis. From the year 2000 to 2017, net immigration to the US averaged about 950,000 people per year. In 2020, net immigration was at half that level, with 477,000 people coming to the US. And in 2021, it was just 376,000. The count revived to the 1 million range in 2022, but it will likely take several years to backfill the labor shortage. The commercial real estate implications of the labor shortage are vast. It will restrain business growth, increase labor costs, slow construction, and reinforce business practices like working from home. Supply chains are another longer-term residual challenge. They've been partially repaired, but supply chains will continue to evolve over the next decade as companies choose to move manufacturing and production closer to the US. That will have profound effects on industrial properties, but it will also influence housing demand, job creation, and space demand for office and retail. A third residual effect of the pandemic that will influence commercial real estate demand is population migration from the urban core of major cities to the suburbs and to smaller cities. That trend was already emerging before the pandemic, but it was amplified by the health crisis. When offices shut down and people were allowed to work from home, it empowered office workers to move to the suburbs or to entirely different cities. You can see the impact on the vacancy rates of suburban apartments relative to their urban counterparts. The trend's also visible in office vacancy rates. Although both urban and suburban office vacancies have been on the rise, the suburbs have held up much better. Retail vacancies also reiterate the trend. Both urban and suburban retail vacancies rose at the onset of the pandemic, but over the last 2 years, suburban vacancies have fully recovered. And while some workers moved from the urban core to the surrounding suburbs, others relocated to entirely different cities, usually areas with a lower cost of living and lower housing density. The final residual effect of the pandemic I want to highlight could also influence long-term commercial real estate space demand: marriages. During the health crisis, many put marriage on hold. In 2019, just over 2 million couples tied the knot. That fell to less than 1.7 million marriages in 2020. Then in 2021, the number of nuptials recovered back to about 2 million. And while hard numbers aren't available yet, estimates place the number of marriages in 2022 in the 2.4 to 2.7 million range. This wave of weddings contributed to a surge in household formation that drove apartment vacancy rates down, and it also likely contributed to the rapid escalation in single-family home sales in 2021 and 2022. On a broader scale, married couples tend to prefer suburban and smaller city lifestyles, especially if they have children. And that will perpetuate the migration trend boosted by the pandemic. So even though we've effectively left the COVID pandemic behind, the residual effects are still with us. People's behavior, values, and lifestyles have changed, and that will continue to influence which commercial real estate property types and locations will have sustained tailwinds. That will influence commercial real estate performance over the long term, in turn influencing investor decisions, especially the investors who keep their eyes on the horizon.